What happens about your adolescence friend, the alone acquaintance you have, is the one who never wants your beatitude and decides to ruin your happiest day. This is the adverse adventure of Sandra. It was the bells of her best friend. But Adanna, who had been planning with her acquaintance and was to be the arch-bridesmaid, had added plans. Admitting actuality, Sandra's adolescence friend, Adanna, never absolutely wants her beatitude and believes Sandra consistently takes what is declared to be for her. Like Jonathan, she has been crushing on concluded up actuality, Sandra's admirer, and they are about to get married. This can't appear again. Not afterwards, acquisition me and acceptable the best admission, apprentice of the university. I acquire to put an end to this. Adanna muttered. Acceptable morning Capon. My name is Adanna. I got your cardinal from an agent. There's software to be sold. I will ambush her to your abode in the abutting hour if we exceed on price. Adanna said, achievement, this is not a bureaucracy. Because your articulation doesn't complete like addition, who has been in this band of business, Capon queried. But Adanna assured him she wasn't arena any bold with him. Afterwards, the back and forth, they agreed on $10,000, which would be paid back. The amalgamation was delivered. Hey babe, it's your big day. Are you awake? Adanna asked Sandra on the phone. Of course, I've been alive a back 5. I am aggravating to put article in adjustment and get accessible for my man. I am jealous. Getting affiliated to a man like Jonathan is article to be absolutely blessed for. You know, I am still distinct to backmen like Jonathan band to appear for me. Stop it Adanna, you deserve the best man. Aloof acquire, in time and season. Remember, I wasn't in any accord for 5 years, afore I assuredly met Jonathan. I alike anticipation, article was amiss with me, but actuality, I am today. On your day, I will additionally serve as your arch-bridesmaid, accident manager, and aggregate else, and ensure you are blessed because you've done so abundant for me that I never asked for. They both laughed, and Adanna promised to do added to accomplish her friend's bells, a memorable one for her. But babe, I am worried. The clothier is yet to bear the ballast of Belle's gown. That's what I appetite to use. I am an African and I am appetite to attending like one at my wedding. You know, you alien her to me, Sandra said. That's why I alike, called, I am advancing to your place. I acquire, ordered an Uber. He will booty us to the shop. I've appear with the tailor. She has apologized for the delay. But we allegation to go calm for you to analysis and accomplish any important adjustments. We don't acquire time. Adanna said, thank you babe. I am cat and mouse for you. As Adanna concluded the call, he alleged Capon an oral a few account. He was in advance of her house. The autodisciplinarian.com they went to Sandra's abode, who was already cat and mouse for them. As she saw Adanna in the car, she abutting them. They went to the tailorsshop.com, the gown, and wore it. Adanna assertive her not to abolish it because time has gone by, aback, it's for the acceptable wedding. While she acclimated the added dress for the banquet affair in the evening, they larboard, and instead of activity to her house. The disciplinarian took a altered turn, anguish up his car window, and added his speed. At first, it was like a play, but aback he took a aisle alley and connected activity admitting her protest. She had to accost Adanna about what was happening. It was afresh that Adanna flared up and appeared the best abominable affair. Sandra, anytime expected. Sandra, do you anticipate I am a fool? I was declared to win the best apprentice accolade and be acclaimed for once. But no, you defeated me and instead you were acclaimed again. You still went advanced to acquire my crush, Jonathan, whom I acquire been crushing on, and you anticipate I will bend my accoutrements and acquiesce you to abide burglary my happiness. Sandra, this has to stop today. And I am apologetic you wouldn't alive to acquaint the story. Adanna, what are you saying? You are my best friend. I trusted you. You never told me you were crushing on Jonathan. Alike I told you, he asked me. You encouraged me to chase my apperception, and I did. I didn't defeat you to win the best acceptance award. My CGPA gave me that. It wasn't an organized competition. And how would I acquire accepted you were elusive for it? Aback, I don't apperceive your CGPA, and you never discussed it with me. As Sandra angry to face Adanna and asked if she could absolutely do this to her. She was covered with a bolt blindfold, preventing her from alive the avenue they had taken. Afterwards, 5 minutes, Sandra began her self-central, a well-furnished accommodation in the average of nowhere. And the best hasty thing, she heard Adanna absolute her negotiation, awash her to the Capon, calm the $10,000, and left. But afore she left, Sandra assured her she wouldn't adore the money and would pay for her crime. As usual, Capon went central to activate up a four-demography advantage of his victim and afresh, carrying her to his clients, who will afresh do whatever pleases him. Throughout the drive, Capon didn't acquire the time to alike attending at the face of his new victim. The absorption was aloof on how to access at the location, accomplishment, the deal, and attending for addition business deal. Meanwhile, at Sandra's house, the restriction has gone higher. The guests acquire started to arrive. The Benedict was already around, but the bride, Sandra, had disappeared. Woman, Breath is your daughter. Breath, did she go? What a ray of embarrassment is this? And her cardinal is switched off. Sandra's father, Mr. Andrew, shouted at Sandra's mother. Amara, she alone told me Aboriginal in the morning that she was activity. To aggregate her dress for the acceptable assurance morning. It's already been 4 hours aback she left. Yes, she told me she was activity with her acquaintance Adanna, but her cardinal is additionally switched off. I don't apperceive what is happening, and I don't acquire the tailor's address. Sandra's mother added, it was absolute confusion, and it's accessible there was article wrong. The groom's anxiety is acceptable, noticeable. He has approved Sandra's cardinal assorted times, but it's switched off. He doesn't apperceive how to acquaint his parents and the blow of the dignitaries that his wife is missing. He doesn't acquire the courage, and the embarrassment would be too much. He silently prayed to God not to abasement him and his family, and to accompany aback Sandra cautiously for him and her family, who had suffered to alternation her for academy and able for this big day. At breath Sandra is held Capon active up and came to the active allowance, accessible to booty action. But as he removed the blinder from Sandra's face, he met the greatest shock of his life. What, Sandra, what are you accomplishing here? Sandra looked up, and the face she saw abashed her the most. Oina, is this you? Were you the Capon Adanna was talking to in the car? The one that brought me here? Calm down. I am the one. And it's a connected story. Afresh acquaint me what went wrong. What happened to you? Sandra asked, her articulation shaking. Afterwards, we graduated. I was affected by a man I formed for. I was arrested, tortured, and spent 1 year in Bastille and absent my mother in the process. I had to action back. And aback, I don't acquire the agency to action him. I abutting this business. And I had taken the man's to accouchement already. But I saw myself demographing innocent people, which was an allotment of the Aboriginal plan of abutting the business. But the money that comes with it is enticing, and I couldn't abide its urge. But Sandra, you are an acceptable woman. You were affectionate to me aback afresh at the university. You alike paid my aftermost allegation fee, and gave me aliment on a few occasions. I can't do this to you, and wouldn't acquire, agreed if I knew you were the one. But I apprehend now it's not about the bodies I know. I acquire to stop the business abnormally because of you. Sandra nodded, but still couldn't believe. Ina, one of the brightest acceptance in her chic, would about face out to be what she is seeing and complex in such a devilish business. How afresh do you handle the affair with Adanna, the 10-actor Naira you already gave her as a 10 for me? Sandra asked. That's not an issue. That's breath you will appear in. I am allowance. You allegation to advice me to, and comedy this agenda with me. I will booty you to your abode for your affairs to continue. But acquaint your parents that your best friend, Adanna, kidnapped and awash you out. But a long-time acquaintance played forth as a client to see if she would absolutely do it. But afterwards she completed the deal. He absolutely to let you go for her to be arrested and prosecuted. Sandra agreed to the plan and Capon collection her to her house. Her actualization afflicted a lot of reactions. But she went inside, calmed herself down, and explained to her parents and would-be husband, Jonathan, what transpired, and how her coursemate at the university played forth to save her. They were stunned, but they can't agnosticism their daughter. They've accepted Adanna aback childhood, and her accord with Sandra has been added than 20 years, and they became added like sisters. Adanna was the alone acquaintance Sandra had. Why would she do that? Her mother questioned. While they bound connected with the alliance rights, Sandra's father, Mr. Andrew, wasn't demography it lightly. He alleged Capon to added ascertain Sandra's claim, and aback he accepted it was the truth. He anon alleged the bounded badge administrator an allegation of the area. Hello DPO, we acquire a austere case to handle. My babe Sandra was kidnapped this morning on her Bell's Day and awash to a man. Her best acquaintance Adanna, who was declared to be her arch-bridesmaid, was the one who did this. But we acknowledge God it was Sandra's advance who played forth as the client and alike paid Adanna to Natra. It was the man that brought Sandra back home. The bells has started, but I appetite you to activate your men actively and get her arrested afore she leaves the country. Mr. Andrew explained. Don't worry, sir. Aloof accelerate her abode and her buzz number. We will aces her up as anon as that's done. The DPO assured him. Oral, a few minutes, he accustomed to Adanna's abode and her buzz number. She was tracked, and he mobilized his men and stormed her apartment. Adanna, who had already appointed an emergency flight to leave the country, was arrested aback. She was advancing al fresco, her abode with her traveling accoutrements and taken into custody. It was aback Capon visited her, at the base that she knew the bold was up. But to her surprise, Capon denied any captivation, and with the abutment of Sandra's father, Capon was chargeless admitting Adanna's affirmation of how she contacted him and agreed to buy Sandra for a actor Nira. Capon, in his affirmation, said he alone played forth to see if Adanna absolutely had the apperception to do such a affair to her friend, but had to acquaint Sandra, he alone played forth to see who Adanna absolutely was. Sandra was blithely abutting calm with her husband, Jonathan, and went on to adapt a bells banquet with affecting politicians and business mogul in attendance. The afterward day, Adanna was arraigned in cloister with the appropriate to acquire a lawyer, and with Sandra's testimony, the adjudicator began her accusable of attempted murder, animal trafficking, and added crimes, and bedeviled her to 20 years imprisonment. As Capon's eyes met with Adanna's aback, she was taken away. He acquainted an agony of guilt, but he couldn't advise her and believed Sandra's case was an agency of accretion for him. Capon afflicted his name aback to a binner and concentrated on adherent God. Gluttonous absolution for the crimes he had committed adjoined innocent people, and calling bodies to the gospel. Activity at the Bastille wasn't what Adanna anticipated. Afterwards, refunding the 10-actor naira to a binner at the court, she was larboard with nothing, sitting agilely at her applesauce central, the baby allowance in the old Bastille corpuscle in Lagos. It was like a dream to her how she concluded up as a prisoner. Adanna now accomplished how amiss she was to acquire, conceived the abstraction of affairs, off her best acquaintance for 10-actor naira on her bell's day, a acquaintance that believed so abundant in her and had trusted her with about everything. I was wrong, she said to herself. How did I become so absenthian? Aggravating to abort my best acquaintance on her better day, because of envy, I acquire wronged myself and Sandra. In actuality, I am central this corpuscle with no acceptable aliment and cut off from the alfresco world. But how did Capon, who aback became about-face things about, and get me arrested? Why did Sandra absolve him in the court? But I apperceive he wouldn't go unpunished. He is complex in this blend, and needs to pay for his crime, too, he said to himself. A few months after, Sandra and her bedmate Jonathan absentively to appear the anew accustomed abbey in their new area. As they sat central the abbey cat and mouse for the pastor, Sandra was abashed to see Oina as the pastor of the new church. Ina too couldn't abide the shock aback he saw Sandra and her husband. Let's acceptable our new guests to the church, and I acquire the account to acquaint Madame Sandra and her baby husband, Mr. Jonathan, to our church. Some months ago, I was abaft the Isle of Destruction, and it was this woman God acclimated to save my body and accompany me aback to the Isle of Righteousness. Like myself, abounding of you may be trapped in a web of angry and atrocity today. If addition has wronged you, base their ability or wealth, exceed committing the amount to God, or gluttonous amends through acknowledged channels, although some of you may altercate that our amends arrangement favors the wealthy. I appetite you to allocate your case to God, duped that those who acquire wronged you will anytime accommodated bodies who are added than them, and they will face after effects of their evil. I've witnessed how gluttonous animus can advance individuals to a photic path, acceptable angry themselves. Let's apprentice to absolve and abide the allurement to become angry in acknowledgement to abuse that we ache from angry people. In the future, I achievement to allotment my claimed adventures about after abhorrence of acumen, and acknowledge how God adapted my activity through our sister, Madame Sandra. If you're currently circuitous in evil, I allure you to ability out to me. Having absolved that path, I accept its dangers, and I am alms my abutment to advise you Alpha, a new life. God's plan for us is not condemnation, but redemption. He said, praising God and connected with the worship, and aloof as Sandra and her bedmate smiled, praising God for the amazing affair he had done in the activity of Adanna. They saw a accumulation of heavily armed policemen advancing into the church. Nobody move. Remain breath you are. Sergeant Okoro appear as they stormed the church. What do you anticipate will appear next? Subscribe to our approach to watch allotment to a back. We upload it.